It's no secret, Africans love to fly. It is the quickest way to move around the continent. Whether you are flying between destinations in your country, traveling internationally within the continent of Africa, or even traveling between Africa and Europe, the Americas, Oceania, or Asia, flying is the way you get there, and the way you get home too. Our AfroPage researchers have put together a list of the top 10 airlines on the African continent. Chances are, like me, you may have flown at least one of these airlines. You can let us know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe to our channel while you're there. Alright, we are cleared by the tower. On the runway, engines throttling up. Let's go, ready for takeoff. Number 10, FlySafair Air. FlySafair Air is a South African domestic low-cost carrier based at Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport. Flights are available between OR Tambo, Lanseria, Cape Town, Port Elizabeth, George, East London, and Durban. The airline has 16 aircraft in service, comprising of 8 Boeing 737-400s and 8 737-800s. Passenger numbers jumped by 46% to 3.1 million passengers in the 12 months to the end of May 2019, representing the largest percentage rise in the top 10. The airline was established in August 2013 and was granted approval by the South African Air Service Licensing Council to launch operations with 10 daily services between Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport and Cape Town International Airport. The airline had plans to begin operations in October of 2013. However, on 8 October of that year, the High Court of South Africa granted an interim court order preventing the airline from starting operations following an application by rival carriers on the basis that it did not meet the legal requirements of 75% local ownership. Substantial restructuring of ownership took place at FlySafair's inaugural event, eventually taking place on 16 October 2014. On 29 March 2017, the airline announced its new partnership with South African Rugby Union, or SARU, making it the official domestic carrier for the Springboks and South African Rugby. Number 9. Mango Airlines. Mango, the low-cost airline and subsidiary of South African Airways, operates scheduled domestic passenger service as well as international flights to Tanzania. The carrier has a fleet of 14 Boeing 737-800 aircraft. Mango was launched on 30 October 2006, with bookings going on sale at midnight on the same date. Mango's first flight took place on 15 November 2006. Mango planned to join Star Alliance as a connecting partner in the third quarter of 2016. However, that plan had been put on hold due to South African Airways' financial state. Number 8. Tunisair. Tunisair, the national carrier of Tunisia, flies to more than 40 destinations across northern and western Africa, the Middle East, as well as Europe. Passenger numbers edged 3.8% higher in the year to the end of May 2019, with 3.5 million passengers carried. The airline expects to receive 5 new aircraft between the end of 2020 and early 2021. The carrier was originally formed in 1948 by the Tunisian government. The initial investment was 60 million French francs, with shareholding split between the government at 35%, Air France 35%, and other interests 30%. Air France transferred some of its DC-3s and routes to the new airline for it to start operations, and these commenced on 1 April 1949. The carrier took delivery of its first jet-powered aircraft, a Sud Caravelle 3, on 31 August 1961. A new service to Frankfurt was inaugurated on October, but it was terminated in March the following year due to poor economical performance. A second Caravelle was ordered in 1963 and entered service in March 1964. Number 7. South African Airways. Perhaps the most turmoiled of the 10 airlines on our list today, the state-owned flag carrier of the Republic of South Africa has endured a tough time of late, and the passenger drop reflects its efforts to cut capacity on loss-making routes. South African Airways was founded in 1934 after the acquisition of Union Airways by the South African government. The airline was initially overseen and controlled by South African Railways and Harbours Administration. Anti-apartheid sanctions by African countries deprived the airline of stopover airports during apartheid, forcing it to bypass the continent with long-range aircraft. In 2006, South African Airways was split from Transnet, its parent company, to operate as an independent airline. It remains one of the largest of South Africa's state-owned enterprises, or SOEs. South African Airways owns Mango, a low-cost domestic airline, and has established links with Airlink and South African Express. It is a member of the Star Alliance. On 5 December 2019, the government of South Africa announced that SAA would enter into bankruptcy protection as the airline had not turned a profit since 2011 and therefore had run out of money. In 2020, January, South African Airways announced that it will suspend several routes to Munich, for instance, in order to reduce its financial struggle. In February of 2020, the airline introduced its first of 4 newly leased Airbus A350-900s in an attempt to modernize its loss-making long-haul fleet. In April of that same year, following a request for further emergency financing due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the South African government announced it would stop funding the airline with immediate effect. The airline then announced plans to lay off all remaining staff by the end of the month, sparking fears that the firm was on the brink of liquidation. As of 1 May 2020, all South African Airways staff members were on unpaid leave of absence, including those who are reporting for duty with no pay for the 4,708-member workforce. Unaudited financial statements presented in a draft report show South African Airlines made losses of almost 16 billion rand in the last 3 years. South African Airways received a 50 billion rand government assistance between 2004 and 2020. On 2 May of 2020, the government of South Africa announced that South African Airways would be ceasing operations after 86 years of service, and that a new flagship carrier would be created for South Africa out of the ashes of the former airline. The liquidation process was set to begin on 8 May, however, a legal battle between the liquidators and the workforce delayed the proceedings indefinitely. In July, the creditors voted to accept the restructuring plan, allowing the airline to avoid liquidation. A full domestic network was to be reinstated by December 2020. However, on 21 August 2020, the Department of Public Enterprise appointed a Rand Merchant Bank to help with negotiations with private entities interested in buying into the country's insolvent national carrier, which needs at least 10 billion rand to resume operations. On 30 September, the airline announced it was suspending all operations until critical funding could be agreed to. In October of 2020, the South African government said it was looking for partners in its effort to bail out the airline. On 28 October, the South African government again bailed South African Airlines out with a 10.5 billion rand loan in order to implement the turnaround strategy. During 2020, the airline returned 4 Airbus A319s, all 10 of their A320s, all 6 A330-200s, and all 4 new A350-900s to their respective lessors. Both Boeing 737 Freightliners also left the fleet in early 2020, ending a long history of dedicated freighter operations at the airline. Number 6. Kenya Airways. Currently led by Chief Executive and Roots Africa 2019 speaker Sebastian Mikosz, Kenya Airways is based at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Nairobi. In October 2018, it began service to New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, its first route to the U.S., and carried more than 105,000 passengers on the route during its first year of operations. Number 5. Comair. No, we didn't say Conair, Comair with an M. Since 1998, Comair has operated as a South African franchise of British Airways, operating much of its services under the BA brand. It also owns the Johannesburg-based budget carrier Kulula. Passenger numbers grew by almost 10% in the year 2019 to the end of May, rising to 6.2 million passengers. The carrier, which operates a fleet of 28 Boeing 737 aircraft, was originally scheduled to take delivery of its second 737 MAX 8 jet in March of 2019. However, it canceled that as a result of the problems with that specific jet. Number 4. Air Algeria. Air Algeria's passenger numbers reduced by 8.6% to 6.47 million passengers in the year 2019. However, it remains the 4th largest African airline overall. The carrier flies to 70 destinations, with Brussels among the latest to be added to its network. About 71% of international seat capacity is to points in Western Europe, with France its largest overseas market. In October, Chief Executive Baruch Elish said the airline has received government approval for a purchase plan to increase its current fleet of 58 aircraft. Number 3. Royal Air Maroc. Royal Air Maroc in 2020 became the first African member of the One World Alliance, carried by more than 7.2 million passengers during the 12-month period to the end of May 2019. From its hub at Casablanca Mohammed V International Airport, the carrier operates an extensive domestic and regional network within Morocco and Africa. In November, Royal Air Maroc and American Airlines submitted a code-share application to the United States Department of Transportation covering routes between the United States and Morocco. American Airlines ran a 3-week route between Philadelphia and Casablanca from 4 June 2020 on board Boeing 757 aircraft. Number 2. Egypt Air. With a 9.7% increase in passenger numbers, Egypt Air carried almost 8.9 million passengers in the year to May 2019. The Star Alliance member currently flies to more than 70 destinations around the world, including 6 in Asia Pacific and 3 in North America. Recent additions from Cairo have included Washington Dulles Airport and Hangzhou. In October, Egypt Air began using its new A220-300 on flights to Budapest, becoming the 6th carrier in the world to receive the aircraft. During the same month, it also began direct flights from Cairo to New York City on its new Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner aircraft. And now, number 1 on our list of the top 10 airlines in Africa, Ethiopian Airlines. Star Alliance member Ethiopian Airlines carried more than 13.3 million passengers in the 12 months to the end of May 2019, a rise of 11.6% compared with the same period a year earlier. The carrier is currently implementing a 15-year strategic plan called Vision 2025 that aims to position it as the new leading airline group in Africa with 7 strategic business units. During the period, the airline introduced 18 new aircraft and 6 new international destinations to Asmara, Istanbul, Jakarta, Manchester, Mogadishu, and Moscow. It also reported an operating profit of $260 million US, with $4 billion US operating revenues in the financial year to the end of June 2019. However, the year was overshadowed by the crash of Ethiopian flight ET-302 in March of 2019. The Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft, which operated the flight, crashed near the town of Bishoftu 6 minutes after takeoff, killing all 157 passengers on board. In October 2019, Ethiopian began a 4 times weekly service between Addis Ababa and Bengaluru using a 737-800 aircraft, while flights from Ethiopia's capital city to Houston, Texas in the United States